Hello and welcome back to Tink or Swim. My name is Jennifer. I'm a knitter and crocheter from Southern California, where I live with my husband Alex and our two cats, Pippin and Sylvanus. This is where I share my recent finished objects and anything else that I might be working on in the yarn and or thread related world, as I have a whip today to share that is an embroidery, my first embroidery project. Um, what else am I supposed to say in the beginning? Uh, I will do my best to link all of my projects in the description below. So, in case I inevitably and regularly do forget a specific detail, I try to keep all that information inside my Ravelry project. So, you can go ahead and check that out. But if you have any questions ever, feel free to ask me. And wow, goodness gracious, I think I said it. I hope I did. It's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, so my headspace hasn't been all the clearest. Just trying to keep track of everything as life is lifing. But hey, that's okay. We're in the art of slowing down with our yarny crafts. And yeah, a little bit about what I've been up to. So this weekend, or we're going into Lunar New Year for those who celebrate, also potentially called Chinese New Year. We're getting ready to do some celebrations. Was it last weekend? No, 2 weekends ago. So I think the day after I filmed last, I had to go to my parents' house. My parents are getting on in age, so my sisters and I started a new tradition of trying to learn how to make. We call it bánh chong or bánh tét in Vietnamese. Um, Long story, but anyways, so there's a little bit of a crossover with the naming convention because my parents lived in Vietnam for some time. When I Google it, bánh chong shows me a different image than bánh tét. So bánh tét is the Vietnamese name. Anyways, do you really care? It's a sticky rice cake. So it's a savory sticky rice cake that takes quite a lot of preparation. It involves glutinous rice, mung beans, and a layer of pork belly, so bacon. And there's like an overnight preparation that I'm not familiar with, but the main thing that my sisters and I wanted to start learning how to do was to make the actual cakes, like roll them in, because there's a center layer or a centerpiece surrounded by a ring of mung bean, and then the rest of the cake is the sticky rice. You wrap it all up in you can use different types of leaves. So I think I've heard banana leaves, bamboo leaves. We were actually discussing as we were making it this time around what kind of leaves they were. And the name of the tree is gone from my memory. But they're not bamboo leaves and they're not banana leaves. Some sort of big green leaf. So you layer them all. I know I'm explaining them so well. You layer them all and then you roll them into a circular shape. So kind of like I want to say a burrito, but kind of not, because you use a bunch of strings to wrap around the outside. And when you get it all wrapped, you simmer them or boil them for hours. So my parents say to do 10 hours. The internet recipe that I found, because I had to take some home to make them, said like 6 hours. And I think one of my sisters said just do it for 8 hours. So somewhere in the ballpark, there is a certain temperature that you can test for. Although I wouldn't put a thermometer inside because then you risk spilling out the filling of the cake because the leaves form a moisture barrier, all that good stuff. So you get it done, you bring it out, and then when it's all dried and stuff, you slice it and then you fry it. So it is a complex process. But yeah, so we made a bunch of them and I brought home 6 to cook, and my husband and I have been eating Lunar New Year-esque sticky rice cakes for breakfast for like 2 weeks. And our actual Lunar New Year celebration is tomorrow. So I'll be making some dishes to bring. It's going to be a potluck of sorts. And yeah, so there's just a lot of preparation. Um, but quite a busy but good festive time. Also went to another birthday party for a niece. Um, our friend's kid turned 2, so we were at a birthday party yesterday. Um, I learned the name of a specific type of shortbread cookie called Jammy Dodgers, which for some reason just tickles me to no end. And that there's a song dedicated to Jammy Dodgers. I think it's a British thing, but it's a shortbread cookie that is filled. It's layered with jam, so it's shortbread cookie, jam, and then shortbread cookie. But the jam, there's also a space in the middle of the top shortbread cookie for the jam to come out, and those are pretty darn good. I don't really have a sweet tooth, but hey, all right. Um, now that I'm done with this incredible tangent, I remember what I forgot to say is that if you're a new viewer and you're still here, welcome. It is nice to have you. If you're a returning viewer, it is also nice to have you. Nice to see you again. I am probably not normally this. In my head, usually I'm like, oh, I'm being super energetic and like bouncing off the walls. And then I watch the recording back and I'm like, no, I'm giving nothing. So this is who I am. All right. So that's what I've been up to. Just a lot of that, and then playing video games. Um, all right. So let's get straight to it. You came for the knitting stuff, so let's talk about the handful of knitting stuff. This might actually be a short one because I'm sort of becoming a monogamous crafter of sorts. But my first finished object is also what I'm wearing, which is the same pattern as my last episode. But this one, so this scarf or shawl that I'm wearing is not blocked yet, but I wanted to hold off on blocking so that I could show it here. So when it is blocked, it's not going to be so tendrily on the ends because there's a lot of curling. There is going to be curling in the final style because the ends, there's a lot of color carrying up the top, up the sides, so you don't want to see that. But it's going to be a little bit flatter on the parts that come out. So this shawl is called Boudoir. Boudoir is designed by Audrey Borrego, also known as Yarn Flakes. It is a free pattern. She made all of her patterns free, all of her self-published patterns free. There are multiple variations that you can go with. You can do a 3-color one, which is what I did, a 2-color one, and I believe a 6-color one. So she has instructions for all those color variations, and it seems like a really great project for 50 grams or less of, well, at least in this case with 3 colors, 50 grams or less of 3 colors, and then making those adjustments if you do the different color variations. It calls for a fingering weight yarn and 4mm needles. Look at me actually sharing details about a pattern. Apologies, there's an airplane going over. All right, so I followed it to pattern for the most part because at the end some funky stuff was happening and I ran out of the color A, which is the lilac color. The yarn that I'm using is Dream in Color Lamb and Goat, which is a blend of merino and cashmere. I don't know if they make these colors on a regular basis because I got it as a part of a set that was packaged with a yarn minder. A yarn minder is something that helps you spin or helps you pull yarn. It's kind of like a lazy, what is it, Lazy Kate or lazy, not a lazy Susan, a lazy woman's name. These names are so stupid. Um, uh, if you haven't heard of a yarn minder, it's a thing that you hang, but they also make stands for it, and it's basically a turntable for your yarn. So I got this packaged as a set. It was like a whole thing. It was a yarn minder plus a pattern plus yarn to make the pattern. Lost the pattern, found another one to make. So again, I got this in 2023. So I don't know if it's still made. I know the company's still around, or the yarn dyer is still around. So Dream in Color. I believe they are based in Texas. But yeah, the yarn is very lovely. I ran out of it. I ran out of the lilac color. The dark gray is coal, and The purple is in my notes. So I had a bit of a panic yesterday because I realized that I was playing yarn chicken and I was losing yarn chicken. And so I was going to have to figure out another color to do, or an alternative to finish the shawl, because there was no getting more of this lilac yarn, especially not 5 grams of it to finish off this shawl. That wasn't going to happen. And I'm not too, when it comes to things that I make for myself, I tend not to be too picky. If there's an issue, if there's a mistake, or if I run out of something, I will figure it out and then just let it be. It's, fun story to tell. So this side is the beginning side. So hopefully it comes off on camera if it doesn't blow out too much. So mind the curling and the ends that I did weave in the ends, but I left some just in case after blocking if they need more movement. But the lilac color, of course, is all through this side. Something happened where I had 4 extra stitches by the time I was on the end chart. And so this pattern is written and charted. And then I realized I had to do some crazy stuff. Again, hope for the best. So there's this, it's supposed to be alternating these. Let me take this off. Please hold. Realize you might be able to actually see it better if I'm holding it up instead of wearing it. All right, so you can see kind of these alternating slip stitches that go across the colors, go across the alternating contrast stripes. By the time that I got to this, see, this is great. I can't even tell at a glance. By the time I got to the end of it, I realized that I was off on the stitch count. So I had to do some decreases, and I didn't know how to plan for that. And then it was too late and I didn't care anymore because I was this far down, which is unfortunate because this is the part potentially that is most visible, whereas I was most consistent and correct with the rest of it. But it doesn't matter. I think it will still curl enough to the point where I don't really notice it. The substitute yarn that I went with, so I'll hold it up and you can kind of see the transition. On camera, it definitely comes out. I mean, because the substitute yarn that I chose is from my galley sweater, which is Cash Vip. It's like a light gray. There's no lilac in it, so that's fine with me. And also, after blocking, this yarn is going to bloom, so it'll soften up. It's kind of stiff right here, but that's because it has spinning oils on it. So I'm cool with that. I'm going to call it done and a success. And then after it's blocked, I think I'll really enjoy wearing it because the yarn is very, very soft. And yeah, I've been looking forward to having it. I cast it on originally last summer sometime. And it's one of those, like, shawls are tricky, right? Because they're really easy to get started, especially if it's end to end like this, like tip to tip, because it's a very small threshold to cast on and call it done or call it started. And then as you go and you're building a wider section, it feels like it's slowing down. So the first half was a bit of a slog, especially because I was working on a lot of other things that took precedent, trying to finish all my languishing whips from previous years. And also just, as an accessory for myself, it was pretty low priority overall. And then after I hit the halfway point, or I hit the halfway point sometime around after I finished my galley sweater. So after my galley sweater, I said, let me finish a couple of smaller projects before I cast on my next garment. More or less successful with that goal because I did cast on a garment, got too excited, and I didn't want to wait till the end of the shawl because it was feeling like a slog. But it all worked out. This is for fun. And speaking of new projects, so I cast on my Calm Down sweater, designed by Lily Kate France. Get me with this these notes. Of course, I don't have a ton of information in my notes. So I cast on the Calm Down sweater designed by Lily Kate France. The yarn I'm using is Hope Made Yarn Co. Hope is obviously a yarn dyer. I also learned about her yarn through her podcast with Keisha. Together they are Pine Barren Knits. Keisha is a jewelry designer. She like photographs nature scenes and stuff and then puts them in jewelry. So that's pretty cool. And Hope has this lovely uh, yarn company and, or I don't know if I call it a yarn. Do we call it a yarn company? Or she's a yarn dyer. I'm like, company just elicits a big corporate image in my mind, but I know Hope just hand dyes everything and, does all the work. She's a one woman show. This is her Joy DK base. Um, it is 80% extra fine superwash merino, 10% yak, and 10% silk. And pardon me. The color tends to shift a lot on camera, especially like depends on what temperature lighting it's under. Um, I don't know if I would call it blowing out, but it does appear, it does appear a little bit warmer in my mind as I'm holding it up here. But it's such a beautiful color. And I cast on a size 4 for the Calm Down cardigan. And now that I've had some opportunity to work with the yarn, I can say it is really squishy. I love the feel of it. There is some splitting, but it might be because of I don't know if these are lace tips, but I don't know. A little bit of splitting, but overall, I mean, nothing compared to, I think that may be the silk. Nothing compared to like a higher silk content yarn. It is so soft though, and I can't wait to have this finished object. But for now, I have a saddle shoulder. So I cast on, uh, I think you cast on where my lime green stitch marker is, and then you work a few rows of ribbing, and then you put your stitches on hold, turn it, and now I'm shaping the front left shoulder area, I think. I've only ever made one cardigan, and it was bottom up, and it took me 2 years to finish. So wish me luck on that. But I have the rough understanding this is top down saddle shoulder construction. There's going to be a ribbing detail down the side of the sleeve. Forgot to mention this is a paid pattern. I don't have the price off the top of my head. I got it during her holiday advent sale. And it is an oversized fit. I'm doing a size 4. And she recommends if you're between sizes to size down. It just so happened that size 4 met my chest measurement. So we will see how this goes. I haven't decided if I'm actually putting buttons on it. I probably will though, because I tend to be a stickler to patterns for like I'm not comfortable yet making adjustments like no, I don't want buttons in this particular thing, but I'm going to do a double knit button band and stuff. I think it is a double knit button band. But yeah, so I cast this on a whim really because I swatched 2 times and thankfully, oh yes, my needle sizes. It was a little sketchy at first because she calls for a 4mm needle for the main body, for the main needle size. I started swatching with a 4mm needle, but my gauge was too loose compared to her recommended gauge or her gauge. So about halfway through my swatch, I switched to a 3.75mm needle, which appeared to get me a little bit closer to gauge. My stitch gauge was fine all the way through. It was the row gauge that was really throwing me off because she writes in her pattern to pay special attention to row gauge because the pattern is written by row. So certain patterns will say, do this for X amount of inches or centimeters, sorry. But this one specifically says like do 10 rows of this, 5 rows of that. So row gauge matters here. And so I didn't want to mess up and have I was getting like an extra, I would have ended up with 1 stitch less per 4 inches. No, I was getting 1 stitch less per inch. So I was off by a good amount, in my opinion. Um, and there is some waist shaping, I think. So yeah, the whole thing just kind of made me nervous. So I switched to a 3.75 millimeter needle. It didn't look like I was getting gauge at first, so then I bound off that swatch and I made a fresh swatch that was all 3.75 millimeter. Um, and once it was dried, it met gauge, stitch and row gauge perfectly. But I was nervous all the way through. So that was a thing that I was going through for like 2 days, just trying to swatch for this. It even got to the point, I don't know if it ever happens to you, but it even got to the point where I was like, maybe I just can't make this cardigan because I can't meet gauge. And gauge is so important for this, apparently. um, and so I started adding like 10 other cardigans to my favorites because I was assuming that I would have to just switch to something else. Um, I will probably make a good amount of cardigans in the future anyway. I mean, I do wear them a lot, and I do apologize if like you can see a ton of cat hair. It's just my life. Um, but yeah, so that was the great gauge swatch debacle, and I've cast on, and so I'm now over that stress hump and got on to the next, I guess, trying to figure out if I'm doing the saddle shoulder correctly. All right, so I think that's it for the new cast on. The next thing, my whip update. I think, I don't know if I think I only had a couple rows since the last video. And this is extremely blown out. So it's looking a lot more corally pink than it does in person. For the red stripe, this is more like a maple red, not however bright this is looking currently. If I hold it far back, is that better? Maybe. This is the Musselburgh by Isolde Teague, another pig pattern. This is a very popular hat pattern. If you haven't heard of it before, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure hat. It's considered swatchless, so you just cast on. Eventually, you get to a certain point where you measure how many stitches you have, and then you continue on from there. She has great instructions. It's a wonderfully written pattern, very flexible for either a solid hat or doing striping. She has recommendations for striping as well, a little schematic in the back. So yeah, I'm making myself one, and the idea is that the bronzy autumnal gold colors are going to be one solid hat. Sorry, the construction of it is one long tube, so it's a reversible hat. So it's going to be this end and then all the way to another end where I'll be decreasing. So one side is going to just be this bronzy color, and then the other side is going to be red. So it's going to be a solid hat. And while I'm constructing it, it looks a little bit striped, but that will not be the case when it's actually worn. The yarn that I'm using is a bunch of leftovers. Mirage Sport by Expression Fiber Arts. I made a big blanket. I had a bunch left over. It's a sport weight yarn. It's a blend of some merino, baby camel, silk, cashmere. Bougie. It's kind of bougie, honestly, but it is lovely. It's got a halo around it. My husband made his first Musselburgh in that yarn, and I had a little bit of FOMO, so I started making my own. I had like 12 colors of it, so I'm very pleased that it's getting some use, that the leftovers are getting use. That's it for my knitting. The last whip that I have to share is very minor progress on this very minor project. And thank you for the person who gave me advice about couching for embroidery for the numbers, because my number situation with the stem stitch is a hot mess. I don't know if I'll be able to use that advice because I poked so many holes in here. I'm a little bit nervous about taking anything out. But in the future, I would love to try couching and seeing if I could get better numbering. But this is a design slash kit by Jamie Photo. I hope I'm holding it up. Yeah, by Jamie Photo. And the kit comes with everything that you need: the hoop, the cloth, the stick and stitch, all the embroidery, floss, and instructions. So the main progress that I made is filling in another of these blue flowers, which is a lot of work actually. It involves the satin stitch, and you just keep going for that. So so I made a tiny little bit of progress. I have it hanging near my desk, so it haunts me sometimes, and then I just decide that that's the thing that I'm going to do for now, and I sure did. Yeah, so those are all the things that I've been working on. Um, I even talked at great length about what kind of I've been up to. Um, if you are only here for the yarny things, then thank you for joining me. Feel free to go on to the next. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been reading and playing, video games, media stuff. Um, so if you're new here, I play World of Warcraft. I play other video games too, but right now it's World of Warcraft. So we've been doing a lot of that. There's a new expansion to the game coming out in March. So we've just been playing here and there in preparation for the next expansion. Um, Having a ball with the feature of player housing that they added to the game, which allows you to basically build your own little house, visit with your friends and stuff, which is surprisingly wholesome and a new aspect to this game called World of Warcraft that has been in existence for over 20 years. I'm an OG. I played when on launch day when I was but a wee child, and should not have been on the internet, but hey, whatever. Uh, um, yeah, when I played World of Warcraft in the beginning, I was that crappy 12-year-old because like when you're being mean about people on the internet, sometimes you're like, oh, this is still totally a 12-year-old. Yeah, I was that 12-year-old. But I don't know. I kind of grew up with the game. I was on and off for, I wasn't playing like straight for the past 22 years, 21, 22 years. Um, but this recent iteration of it has been really nice. And it feels like it's more amenable to where I am presently in my life because I'm not the sweat lord that I used to be. And I have, hand and wrist issues now from working at a desk all the time, from knitting a lot, from all the video gaming that I did. So I can't necessarily keep up with a lot of the same play styles. So it's kind of shifted over the years. And all that to say, this little housing stuff has been a lot of fun. They've fixed a lot of issues that I had with playing The Sims, if you're familiar with The Sims, which is um, a life simulation game, but originally intended to be an architectural simulation game. But in The Sims, there are a lot of issues with placement of objects and what's called like clipping and bounding boxes that just don't allow you to do certain things. And you have to get an add-on or a mod, like a separate third party independently created thing that essentially lets you cheat in the game and put things where you want them to go. But WoW housing doesn't necessarily, it comes with all these abilities built in to just place wherever you want. So people are making incredible designs. Like actually it's turning into, I would argue, almost like an art of like the way that people even take things like table objects in the game and make full-on line art sketches or like almost paintings out of just pushing table ends all through a wall and using them as sketch lines. It's crazy. And the other day I saw somebody build an entire train with train compartments that you could walk through in different themes. Like they had a dining cart and it was in a Wild West town. There's a saloon. It was crazy. All from the original concept that you just build a little house where you can put your stuff. So that's World of Warcraft. And last thing is we've been reading. I wanted to talk about this the last time, but I ran out of time. We've been reading the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Not necessarily a new thing, but an ongoing thing. I believe he may have just published or is in the process of publishing his 18th book in this series. He has other series, but the Dresden Files centers around what my husband and I jokingly call like the biggest loser. Like if Harry Potter grew up and he was a big loser in Chicago. Um, and this wizard, Harry Dresden, kind of starts off down on his luck, kind of an ass, like I would argue misogynistic or in his mind chivalrous, um, with just a really bad attitude. And I think the grown up complex of a kid who was bullied a lot in school and really hates bullies and is now also an edgelord, kind of. And I don't mean to insult the writing. I think a lot of this is put in intentionally as character flaws for Harry Dresden. So routinely as we're reading, I'm like, I can't stand this guy. And he's the main character and it's written in his perspective. Having said all of that, there is a lot of character growth. There is a complex world building. So impressed by the world building in this and the magic system and how Jim Butcher explains how magic works and how the different entities of the supernatural world coexist or don't coexist. Um, and the cast of side characters is fantastic. So everybody that ends up being in Harry Dresden's life, um, they're just really cool in-depth characters that don't always feel as how do I say this nicely? Like they're almost like character foils for Harry Dresden. There we go. Um, Literature talk. They're almost like character foils for different aspects of him. So his um, issues with family, his issues with his self-confidence or his fears, and there's always kind of a character that kind of, whether he knows it or not, maybe teaches him better in that regard. We're on book 7. So again, there's like 18 books or something, plus a bunch of side quests that we haven't read. So we're really getting in this world building, this, fascinating dark powers at work. And each book has similar pacing, that there's an issue presented pretty early on. And then maybe by about 80% of it, he kind of figures out how he's going to deal with it. But you don't really figure out the conclusion or the solution, because even he, as an unreliable narrator, I would argue, he withholds some information until the very end. So there's a little bit of this guessing game that goes on. My husband and I read in the car together. While he's driving, I'm reading. And we'll try to figure out like, oh, who done it, basically. Um, so it's pretty neat. It's pretty fun. If you have strong opinions about characters that are potentially misogynistic, um, or I don't want to say racist, but I get a little bit annoyed as a person of Asian descent that like we're reading and I'm like, okay, he's talking about or talking to somebody who appears of Asian descent, and almost the 3 out of 3 times that it's happened, they have an Asian accent, they have a very Asian name, and then for some reason they are some kind of ninja adjacent. Um, Even if they're not an actual ninja. Like the last one was like there was a shuriken that occurred, and I believe he called it a Chinese throwing star, but I'm pretty sure that's a Japanese thing. So it's just a little bit, and I don't know if it's out of, and I want to be completely forgiving, and also as a writer, um, because this is a bigger conversation of how to appropriately write characters of who are of ethnic minorities, as it relates to the writer themselves or the character themselves. So how do we sensibly write them without holding up stereotypes and or without trying too hard to go in the opposite direction? So it's a great conversation, or a great thing to think about, at least for me. Again, I said I'm a writer, so this is something that I internalize sometimes. So yes, I kind of overthink it, and maybe for the average reader, it doesn't matter that much. It's something that you can easily gloss over. Um, but but yeah, I for now it's just kind of a silly little thing that sometimes if I'm not in the mood for that kind of stuff to happen, I'm like it kind of sours the moment of maybe because I can suspend disbelief in certain cases, but sometimes I'm just like, okay, now you're trying too hard to be something in this direction. I don't know. I don't know. I hope I'm explaining it pretty well. And again, this isn't to like cause a whole thing. It's not that serious. It's just again, I don't know how long ago these were written, so that's also in respect to that, like when certain things um were not necessarily okay, but things were more normal and less addressed perhaps. Um But all that to say, that doesn't necessarily take away from the grand storytelling. So again, I'm having a good time with the overall world building. I will stick to that. And the magic system is really interesting. I do think, I do think he's revealing himself as a bit of a Dungeons and Dragons nerd or a video game nerd because there's a lot of terminologies or the way that the action sequences are described that I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely play video games or you play D&D. Um, because of just the way that certain things happen, um, and certain terms. Because I feel like certain things are just very Dungeons and Dragons terms, like thaumaturgy or even evocation, the classes of magic. I don't think thaumaturgy is an official D&D classification of magic, but there's evocation, illusion, um, uh, whatchamacallit? It's gone out of my brain. Anyways, so yeah, uh, I don't know if I'm keeping that whole rant in, but if I did, then woohoo! If you stuck with me through that, woohoo times two for you. Um, yeah, so that's what we've been up to. Looking forward to continuing my cardigan, and yeah, it's been a busy time. Looking forward to things slowing down a little bit over here, and then by slowing down, I mean picking up with knitting and or crocheting. And I think that is all that I have today. All right. So thank you again for joining me today. And I hope you are taking care of yourself. I hope you are taking your breaks, staying hydrated, and being kind to those around you. Goodness knows we need it during these times. All right. So take care of yourself, and I will see you again next time. Bye.